What's up, gamers? Last week I posted a teaser video of a Gridshot round in which I had a score of over 100,000 points, and I promised I'd get you some tips on how I made that happen. So here we are. First, though, I want to give a shout out to my first batch of subscribers coming in. Thank you guys so much for the support, especially early on, considering I've only posted about 9 or 10 videos so far. So truly appreciate it. Thank you so much once again. So for this video, I'm going to be focusing on Gridshot. Gridshot is commonly referenced for gauging how good your aim is, because obviously we all know that shooting large floating balls is by far the best way to gauge pure aiming skill and raw talent. So just to warn you guys up front, when it comes to obtaining excellent aim, there is no secret sauce. There's no one tip that's going to magically make you twice as good at aiming. The reality is that good aim comes with lots of practice. There's really no way around that. Hopefully the tips I'm about to give you and some of the advice I have will help you along the way to getting really good aim, or at least smashing some Gridshot PRs. Just know that you're going to have to grind consistently, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So with that out of the way, the first tip I want to give you is to build a solid aiming foundation. And right now you're thinking, well, that's obvious, dumbass. What's your next tip going to be? Make sure your mouse is plugged in. And just to put this in perspective, I'll use a golfing analogy, even though I know you probably don't give a shit about golf. But if I can currently drive 150 yards and I want to smash that record and get all the way up to 200, if I just go and swing the club as hard as I can every single time, eventually I'll get lucky and I'll drive the ball 200 yards. And along the way, I'll definitely get a little bit better. But what would be a more efficient use of your time is to first focus on your technique. And once your technique isn't absolute garbage, in the long run, you'll hit 150 yards, 200 yards, and more, but you'll be able to do it very consistently. And that's just because the technique, the way you're swinging the club, is much more efficient. And the same thing applies to Gridshot. If you go in and you play Gridshot all day long, if 90% of your training time is solely dedicated to Gridshot, you're going to have the same problem that I had, because that's what I was doing. Eventually, you're going to just try to go faster and faster, but your accuracy is going to hold you back, because every time you try to increase your speed, your accuracy is going to be shit, and you're going to be missing targets left and right. So instead, focus on your precision. So what that means is spending a lot less time doing Gridshot and a lot more time doing tasks or drills where you're shooting at smaller targets. So I like to do 6-shot. And the reason I like to do that is because the targets are small from the beginning, where if you try to do some of the precision rounds, those tasks, halfway through the round, the targets are finally small. The targets always start out large. It takes 30 seconds before they're adequate size. So honestly, I would probably not use those too much. You can still use them. They're still good drills to practice, but I would start at 6-shot, or if you have Kovacs, one wall 6 target small is also really good for this. And just really focus on precision, because what you're doing when you do your precision tasks is you're honing your mouse control, and the better mouse control you have, the more efficient you're going to be able to do Gridshot, the faster you're going to be able to go while maintaining control of the mouse. And ultimately, that's going to be the goal. So focus on that first. The best way to do this in Aim Labs is actually to set up a playlist and make sure that Gridshot only makes up a small portion of your playlist. The majority of your playlist should be precision tasks and, like I recommended, 6-shot. And then do that for quite a while, and then as your precision, your aim gets better, as your accuracy gets better, then go ahead and start incorporating more Gridshot in. The next tip I have for you guys is to make sure you're not afraid to take a step backwards. Sometimes people are going to feel like they're losing progress. What's going to happen is you're going to forge ahead, you're going to be trying to go faster and faster, and there are going to be times where it looks like you're improving because your score's going up. However, when your accuracy starts to suffer, you're eventually going to reach a brick wall where you're no longer improving. So when that happens, when you plateau, just make sure you slow down, go do another round, but go slower and just focus on hitting as many targets as you can. Keep doing that each round, though. Just go a little bit faster. Remember, when it comes to getting 100,000, it's really not a sprint. Like, it really is a marathon. So don't be afraid to take a step back. Don't be afraid to lower your score temporarily to increase it in the long term. The third tip I have for you guys is to use a metronome. Using a metronome will basically turn you into a robot that shoots every time the metronome pulses. This basically made me the first human aimbot that couldn't hit shit but could keep tempo. So, how does a metronome help you in Gridshot, you ask? Great question. So, it'll help you with two things. The first thing using a metronome helps with is transitioning from target to target faster and more efficiently. So, when your targets are very close together like this, you can obviously shoot them really quickly because the distance that you have to travel is so little. It doesn't take any time at all to move from one target to another. However, when the targets are far apart like this, it's a much further distance. So when it's a much further distance, there's basically two things that happen. One, it takes a longer time to reach a target because of the longer distance, and two, because you're moving it further, there's much more room for error. It's much more likely you're going to miss that target. So to my point with the metronome, is since you're going to shoot in tune with the metronome, every time the metronome ticks, you're going to shoot. So what that forces you to do is it forces you to shoot regardless of how far apart the targets are. So whether they're right next to each other or spawned in three different corners, you have to shoot just as quick as when they're close together. So this forces you to get faster and faster at shooting targets that are further apart. And this is what really helped take my score to the next level, because that's what was holding me back. And using a metronome, it is a little bit of a pain in the ass, if I'm being honest with you. Having it tick in your ear is not a comfortable experience by any means. It's a little bit disorienting, especially to have all these sounds going on when you're trying to shoot. So you can, if you prefer, I tried muting the game and only listening to the metronome. That seemed to work, but after that, I ended up just listening to both. I tried to shoot alongside the metronome for a while, but eventually I felt like I was going insane. So I did just shoot with the metronome a couple times and then just do several rounds without it, turn it on for the next round, and then shoot several more without it. But you'll find what works best for you. For me to hit 100,000, I had to shoot to a speed of 330 beats per minute. So if you want to break 100K, I would say that would be a pretty good goal. When starting to use a metronome, I would start around 150 to 200 beats per minute, and then just kind of incrementally move it quicker and quicker from there. Honestly, when I'm shooting 330 beats per minute, there's plenty of times where I'm not able to keep pace with the metronome, but it's the speed that really forces me to go faster and faster, and that's kind of where I was at when I hit that PR. The second thing that the metronome does for you is it really shows you when you're slow. So for example, there's been times where I've logged on and I've played a couple rounds of Gridshot and my scores were kind of trash, and when listening to my Gridshot, or not my Gridshot, holy shit, when listening to the metronome and just clicking along to it, I realized that I was going way slower than I thought I was, because just clicking along to the metronome when it's ticking, which it ticks pretty damn fast, I realized I was just really slow. So it'll kind of let you know that you need to pick the pace up and kind of get your ass in gear and start just shooting faster overall. So it's helpful in that regard too. And if the metronome drives you nuts, really the whole purpose of the metronome is to force you to flick faster. And if you don't like using the metronome, then just make sure you're doing tasks that will simulate the same thing and force you to do flicks faster. Now you can use reflex shot in aim lab to do that, because you are forced to shoot it before it despawns, but it takes a while, if I'm being honest. So I didn't like using reflex shot for this. I do like using the reflex shot in Kovacs, reflex flick, fair, and then hard. I used fair for quite a while, and hard is pretty damn hard. So if you can get that down, you'll probably be pretty good for Gridshot. So those are two alternatives, but I didn't use them a ton because I preferred the metronome, because then I can practice within Gridshot. And again, that's kind of the score that you're going for in this scenario. So you still want to train on that. as much as possible once your foundation is sturdy and you have really good precision. The next tip that I have for you guys is to eliminate inconsistencies. You really need to stop changing your sensitivity, stop changing the way your keyboard's tilted, stop changing your mouse grip, moving your mouse pad, tilting your monitors, stop worrying about which way your dick is hanging at the moment. Really, guys, if you are continuously changing things, you're really screwing up your muscle memory. And remember, at the end of the day, that's all aim training is you're training your muscle memory. And if you're constantly changing shit, you're going to be halting that progress. That's another thing. I was chasing my tail forever on sensitivity. I mean, I couldn't tell you how long I ran in circles with high sensitivity, low sensitivity, and really fucking low sensitivity. But at the end of the day, now I've picked one, I've stuck to it, and I was able to smash that 100,000 along with some of these other tips that helped me. So really, those are the main things I have for you guys as far as being able to hit 100,000 on Gridshot. I know there's a lot of other kind of general aim tips I could give you, but those are the main ones that I found helpful along my journey of reaching 100,000 in Gridshot. So guys, I feel like I've been rambling forever, so I'm going to shut up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a little bit different than my previous videos since previously I was doing reviews. My next video will be a review of the Model O wireless, so stay tuned for that. Again, shout out to my recent subscribers. You guys are amazing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.